Most horrific incidents you record was in the night during a raid in Rumadi, and you described the circumstances with one of your sergeants actually saying, "Tonight is retaliation time in Rumadi." Tell us about that incident.
Well, it was, we had many, for that incident, for the retaliation. Prior to that, there had been a commander in the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment, which is the regiment I was with, that had gotten injured. I don't know exactly. I don't even know if it was a fatality. But that was said after that fact. I mean, in Ramadi the second time, there were so many incidences, of course. The one, you're on a QRF mission, which it's like you're the quick reaction force for the military. It's like you're like a SWAT team. For that 24-hour period, you're in control. I mean, if anything happens within that city, then you're sent out to what would you say, calm down the uprising. The night that we got the call, we were on it. We were going to our designated spot. We took a sharp right turn by the banks of the Euphrates River. On the left side, I seen bodies that were decapitated. My track stopped. I was asked to, see if I was, of course, the lowest ranking, so I was told to get out and see if I could find evidence of a firefight, which means, shell casings. When I got out of the back of my track, I heard one American soldier screaming that we had lost it. I heard, I looked to the other side. I seen American soldiers kicking the head around like a soccer ball. I got back inside of my APC, which is an armored personnel carrier. Said I wouldn't have no involvement. Of course, the next day I asked if anything had been filed for that, and because to me that was completely unacceptable. And that's when I say that's when my will started to change, of course.
I have to get you to go back over that because of the way you just described it. Are you saying you saw American soldiers kicking around the decapitated head of a dead Iraqi? Yes, that was. Of course, of course I live with that nightmare every day. That's something I have a lot of problems with, of course. But it was, to me, that was completely, there's no justification and no reason why that should have happened like that. There's no reason. It only takes one shot to kill a person, even if it was for that standpoint. But there's no reason whatsoever to decapitate a human person by means of gunfire. Were these people civilians? Or were they insurgents? Was there any evidence that they were armed? No evidence whatsoever. To me, they were civilians. It's such an horrific scene that many Americans are going to believe that you've invented this for your book. Oh, I'm sure they will, but then the way I look at that is every day there's other soldiers coming out with facts just like mine, from their own personal experiences. I mean, it's just a matter of time until it all comes out. I'm not the first one, of course, or nor am I going to be the last one to say that these atrocities are happening. What's happening there will be dealt with later on. So, I mean... In your account of that incident, you include the names and details of members of your platoon, including a sergeant and a staff sergeant. Will any of those people back up your account? I don't know that, right? I mean, it depends on how do they look at the war now, of course, since they've been out. Of course, they're going to see me as a total, whatever you might want to call it. But they're going to see me as a lot different since I deserted, of course. And I don't know where they stand. I would say a lot of soldiers come back and they, of course, they come to their conscience. So I would say that it'll be reported. I hope that it will be. If not, I witnessed, I seen it, and it's my facts. Now, if it's true what you saw was a war crime, would you be willing to give sworn evidence about that before a court or a tribunal? Oh, well, of course. I mean, that's, that's involved, and of course I would. Joshua Key, the victims you described were not all adults. You also graphically described the killing of a very young Iraqi girl. Can you tell us that story? Yes, I was pulling guard on a Ramadi Children's Hospital. I did for many, many times. On on one same position, because you would always change your position every so many hours. On the one side there was a house adjacent to the fence, and there was a 8-year-old girl. She would always run over Mr. Food, Mr. Water. Well, of course, after a short number of times I gave in to her. I would give her my MREs. I would give her my water. To me, it was a kind face. It was a smile. I didn't have no idea what she was saying. She herself would bring me bread, would bring me water. You know, and then that continued, and until one day, you know, she's just like normal. She's coming across the street to get her MRE and her water, and then you know, the way I look at it, I heard a shot and her head exploded like a mushroom. To me, that shot, you know, after being in war, of course, and I would say anyone could say it who's been there, there's a definite distinction between an AK-47 shot and an M16 shot, and to me, it was an M16 shot.
One of your own men shot her, is that what you're saying?
You know, I don't know for sure, of course, but you know, that's my speculation. Yes.
Could there have been any other reason for an accidental shooting? Did she suddenly appear? Could she have appeared somehow to be a danger to your troops?
I wouldn't think so. Not for how many times. I mean, there was other soldiers in my squad that gave her food as well, so I could not see there being, you know, somebody seeing a danger or a threat in her. No.
What happened to her body? What happened after she was shot?
Her mother came, some other family, and I don't know what happened to it afterwards. I don't know what happened with her.
You saw her body collected, though?
Yes, yes.
Was her death reported?
I do not know again. I mean, you know, I look at that, and I mean, and out of complete honesty, I was a PFC. I did not have no idea what was going on or what missions were filed, what things had happened, what was told. I do not know.
What did these kind of incidents that you witnessed or took part in, what did they do to your effectiveness as a soldier?
It made me devastated. I mean, you know, it's one thing to go to another country and fight for democracy and to bring freedom, to rid weapons of mass destruction and rid the world of the evil tyrant Saddam Hussein. That's one thing, rather than going to a country for you don't know what reasons, committing the atrocities and the acts that we were doing with no justification whatsoever. I mean, I live with the effects of that every day. You know, it's if it was a justified and illegal war with reason, I would still be there today. I left because there was no reason, unjustified, illegal, and immoral to myself.
Now, you're one of 35 US deserters trying to convince the Canadian government to treat you as if you were refugees. What would happen if you were sent back to the US?
Of course, I've heard many different things. I couldn't tell you the truth because, of course, I haven't been sent back. But the last I was told is up to 5 years in prison. You know, I respond to that. Even 1 day in prison. No one should have to spend 1 day in jail for doing the right and moral thing, especially when 95% of the world knows we are. It's just the other 5. That shouldn't happen. No one should have to.
Are you in contact with some of those Vietnam deserters who also went to Canada decades ago?
Yes, I'm in contact with...
What do they say to you?
Well, you know, I've heard many times, you know, that it wasn't like a ball game for the first few that came. You know, they had to fight for their right to stay here as well, and of course the provision was given afterwards. The way I look at it is still today, you know, I will fight and fight and fight until, you know, I'm not asking for refugee status. You know, I am in one hand, but I'm not. I would much rather have a provision for all of us to stay so that every single soldier that comes here does not have to go through this. They shouldn't have to, and we should, you know, obligations... international law obligations, we should be allowed to stay in Canada.
Now, in the very last line of your book, you say that you will never apologise for deserting. And finally, you say this: I owe one apology only. That's to the people of Iraq. Why did you say that?
Because that's where my apology, you know, if my apologies go, you know, I apologize for raiding their homes. I apologize for doing the things I did for any sense of anything I did there, from stealing from them. I am completely. But as far as being to the U.S. government, no, because they lied, they falsified, and they're the one that put us all there. So, no. I apologize, and I apologize to one, and that's the Iraqi people.
Joshua Key, we'll have to leave you there. We thank you very much for taking the time to come and talk to us.
No, thank you.